Episode 6, Demonic Reflection. The demon cackled as the party threw attacks out in a reckless panic. The monster slid between the strikes, only taking minor glances to its surprisingly tough skin. A clawed hand raised into the air. 3 balls of blood spiraled out of the monster and shattered, splintering out towards all. Taking the full brunt of the spell, Melara is left screaming on the floor in pain. Bone shatters, leaving Elidus on one leg. Fenrir scrapes by, blood slowly dripping from scratches. "Get it!" Fenrir shouted, commanding Charlotte. Growling, the wolf snapped at Fenrir, the last vestiges of its wild nature leaking out. Melara breaks her vial, the act refortifying her and allowing her to stand once more. Stumbling to her feet, she rushes the demon, but her blades fly wide. Katrina lashes out, striking at her own demonic reflection. Elidus chugs his vial, returning strength, but not the use of his leg. Then, taking advantage of the distraction provided by Melara, whips a javelin through the monster's arm. With a smooth tug on the javelin, the demon sends a wave of blood crashing down on Katrina and Melara. Gore passes, leaving Melara unconscious on the ground once more, and Katerina, naught but soaked in crimson. Fenrir settles Charlotte, turning the wolf's wrath in the right direction. The reflection and the truth seem to dance with each other, Katrina darting back and forth, weaving her lashing whip with her footwork. The demon darting back, creating space as it raises its hands. A second javelin sprouts from a shoulder as a third slices a cheek. Blood orbs shatter, spraying out. Katrina is thrown to the ground where she remains in a growing pool of blood. The blood boils, hands spilling forth and clawing desperately at the remaining combatants. The 2 men are left on their last legs. Fenrir cries a command to Charlotte, who tears from his bloody grip. In a blur of fur and springing muscle, the canine takes the reflection by surprise, distracted by its own victory over itself. A great spray of blood geysers from the monster's torn throat. Bewilderment carves the last lines to ever plague the demon's face before it falls. Fenrir darted forward, quickly pushing the blood in Katerina's vial down her throat. Her flesh restitched itself, and she woke. "Melara, now!" Elidus bellowed. Katrina leapt for the other woman. Torn cloth and strong hands wrapped wounds as she directed Fenrir and Elidus to stabilize Melara. A stench began to fill the air as silence fell. The low thrumming of the room stopped with the demon's own heartbeat. Elidus's leg is splinted, and the group looked on at the corpse. The demon's blood itself could be sold for quite a bit, considering what pig's blood was sold for. Sure that some other uses could be found, Fenrir decides to butcher the corpse. "Do you want any part of this body?" Fenrir asks Katrina. "It is yours, after all." "Did you have to phrase it like that? But yes, I do. Though I would like some privacy as well." With the others standing behind a pillar, Katrina pulls the demon's heart out. "I gave my first away foolishly," she thinks before pocketing it. A loud plop echoes in the cavern. A chunk of the roof had fallen into the pool. Gore rained and bone buckled and broke as the room rotted before their eyes. One last mad dash is made in desperation, only for the dark of rotting flesh to swallow them whole. An unknown time later they woke on the cold ground around the manhole into the sewers. The public baths were not happy to see the 4 disheveled men and women, covered in grime and blood, smelling of rot, piss, and shit. Though the baths are there for a reason. The blood is sold to Granny Charlotte in exchange for her to replace Melara's vial. The old woman tells Katrina to see her as soon as she is done with the operation. At Fenrir's request, Elidus scouts out the Thuluzu merchants. 3 women in regular dress and animal hide are gathered arguing around a loaded caravan in the town square. As he approached, they silenced themselves. The nationality of the first to speak with him was impossible to say, though little Stormlander blood could run through her veins, judging by her height. "How can I help you?" the woman asked in a warm tone. "I heard that you purchased swords recently," he responded. She waved her hand. "Swords to be sold south of here. Blades made by flame-forged smiths, even regular ones, sell better in the south. If you want to buy one, you should ask Decius. We won't be selling them here. Though, if you want to buy some honey, we can get you a discount." The last words gave him an uncomfortable feeling. After perusing the carts and carriage, he left. In truth, he rested in an alley and watched them. When he left, the three returned to their argument. The one who he had talked to seemed to have calmed herself and took control over the discussion. One, fierce and enraged, stormed away, as the third awkwardly tried to console her before being pushed away. Elida slinked after the angry one. She looked omish in dissent, leaving her short and curvy. Yet her voice carried none of the dull monotone of her ancestry's tongue. In a cold, abandoned alleyway, she muttered, "Please let me find her, so we can get out of this hellhole of a country." Then she stripped. Throwing a dog pelt from her shoulders left her in naught but a dress of crow feathers wrapped around her waist. She lifted it about her shoulders, spreading it like mock wings. Bones snapped, limbs contorted. The woman vanished, and a black crow fluttered away. Melara tossed in her bed, a whispered voice in her ear. She bolted up, eyes darting around the room. A shadow fell away from her window. A 7-fingered handprint seemed to gleam in the moonlight. Melara peered out, and her heart seemed to stop. A tall woman, with gray dust in her hair, a chisel and hammer at her hip, disappeared into an alleyway. Melara bolted out of the inn. This was impossible. Her mother was dead. The dress fluttered in the cold wind as Melara peered fearfully down the alleyway. That gray dress disappearing around the corner. How many times had she herself tugged on it? It seemed like hours slipped away into time as she chased the impostor. Never once did the illusion's pace seem to be more than a walk. Never once did Melara catch a look at its back. Then it came to an end as abruptly as the alley before her did. A man loomed there. Darkness shrouded his eyes as his cloak whipped around him as if the still air bellowed in a storm. "Why must I be guised, Lord? Why must you blind me now?" he muttered in a voice of grating gravel before noticing Melara. "What brings you, child?" "Nothing." "Then you must be lost." The man offered a black-gloved hand. "I'm not lost," Melara said as she started away from the man. Each slow stride seemed to snap the man's cloak back in a harsh wind, and it rushed forward as he halted outside the alleyway. "You must not pester me now, Lord. A woman lies to me," the man growled. "Who are you talking to?" Melara asked, backing away. She rushed, and he did not, yet each stride he took sent him farther than it should have. "She has not been tested. She has proven herself dishonest, Lord. You may want her, but I do not. The child is no squire, no faithful servant." The man fell into silence and stopped. His head whipped around to look at the southern tower. "Child, you are lost," he said to Melara. "We are all lost. And when lost, it is best to hike a high place, to see the land for true." Then he vanished. The trap door to the attic creaked open. Katrina found Charlotte, Mary, and Alice grouped together chatting about Reacher knows what. At the sound, the three fell into a sudden silence, only for Charlotte's face to split into a wide grin. "Quickly, child. We have much to discuss." The old Kraken woman beckoned. Alice glared at Katrina in suspicion, and Katrina did likewise. "Alice," Mary said, "be a dear and get Katrina some tea." Grumbling, the other woman obliged. Katrina took a seat, and Charlotte began. "It's unusual to gain your powers from a mirror. Usually it's used to strengthen them." Katrina hesitated. "You mean witchcraft?" "Of course, child. Tell me, do you simply know how to cast spells?" Katrina looked suspiciously at Alice, and the raven-haired woman looked coolly back. "Yes," Katrina said. "Just like the normal way," Mary clapped. "The normal way?" Katrina asked. "Yes. Normally, you get control over the blood by bedding a man until you have the dream." Alice's face flushed and she looked away. "What? Why would that give you blood magic?" asked Katrina. "Because the dream and the sacrifice," Charlotte said. "Which is?" "A private matter," said Mary. "Why do I have to be here for this?" Alice muttered. "It is a long-standing tradition in Immortis, a coven to share one's knowledge of dark arts, to cover each other's tracks, and to help learn who watches from the shadows," said Mary. "You both said that was Elise, and now she's gone," said Alice. "They'll find another soon enough," Mary said. "In the meantime..." The two older women produced twin, large, leather-bound tomes. "Our gift to you." Alice and Katrina reached greedily for the books. The next day, as the players discuss what to do next, a small, mousy woman bursts into the inn. "Elise was found a witch by the High Lord. She's going to be burned at the stake," she whoops. At noon, the High Lord's going to burn a witch." Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Hit that cursed little bell. And I hope to see you around my campfire again.